Hi guys, welcome to my process vlog for this sweater I'm making. I first want to start with the inspiration for this sweater. I really wanted to do something with text. I'm super inspired by I'd Knit That on Instagram. I really love her work. She uses a lot of text and kind of like journaling kind of pieces. And I also found this other one by Sectend, I think they're called, on Instagram as well, which is a lot of text and images, so I knew I wanted to do something with that. I also wanted to talk about the algorithm and how fiber art is a slow process and how I personally struggle to feel like I'm keeping up with these like Instagram algorithms and wanting to post online and be in these spaces, but it takes me a long time to make a sweater. So I wanted to kind of play with this idea of feeling trapped by this algorithm and kind of use these like prison motifs of these like cartoony, like striped prison uniforms, as well as tally marks that prisoners use to count days. And I don't know if that's real or if this is just in movies, but that kind of idea. So I started by sketching out some ideas. I wanted to use the stripes on the sweater in some way, but I thought having the stripes over the entire body would maybe be a little busy, so I decided to just keep them on the arms and put the text in the middle. I went through a couple different versions. I decided to put the tally marks on the back and keep the text on the front. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the text, so I kind of wrote down a couple different ideas that I had, and I ended up choosing how can I be relevant when this piece took me a certain amount of days to make, and in the final piece I will fill in the actual amount of days. So with that, we can get started working on the actual piece. I first started off planning my text chart in Stitch Fiddle, which is a website that I use. I just went and started playing with how I can make these letters and deciding like the letter forms and the size. And then after I had that down, I could kind of use like certain letters as a base and copy and paste to fill out the rest of my text. And then I just played a little bit with the spacing and the length of like how I wanted each line to look. In order to know the measurements for the sweater that I want to make, I'm going to base the measurements off a sweater I already have. So I'm just going to draw myself a little diagram here with the sweater so that I can write down all the measurements that I need to take. So the first one we're going to do is from the shoulder to the bottom, which is 61 centimeters, and I'm just going to write that here. I'm going to take the width from the armpit to the armpit, 54 centimeters. The width of the neckline is about 20 and a half. And then we're also gonna get the length of the sleeve, starting at the shoulder here, and that's 56. So now I can take these measurements and use my gauge swatch to calculate how much knitting I'll need to do on the final project. So now I'm ready to start knitting. I'm gonna knit this piece flat, which means I'll do one front panel and then one back panel and put them together. I'm gonna start with a long tail cast on and just cast on to my desired length, making sure it's a multiple of 4 because I'll be doing a 2x2 rib. So once that's done, I can start with that ribbing, and I'm gonna do 2 knit stitches and 2 purl stitches, repeating across all of the ribbing until my desired length. This is the completed ribbing, and it's about 5 centimeters long. And then next, to go to the body, I'm going to switch from 4mm needles to 5mm needles, and this just makes it so the ribbing is a bit tighter than the body and gets that like pull that you like. And then I can start knitting the body, which I'm going to do in stocking nets. So that is knit stitches on the front side and purl stitches on the back side, and I can just do that to my desired length. To start off the week, I'm gonna see how much I can knit in about an hour. We'll see. I'm gonna put on a movie. I've got 2 beverages. Shout out Jean-Luc and his ceramics. I've got a snack. And I've got some knitting to do. So I'm gonna start a time lapse and see how much I can get done. Okay, after 1 hour, we've lost a lot of light. I watched 2 episodes of The Bear, And here's the progress we made. About this much in that 1 hour. Here you can kind of see along the side seam how much it's grown. So yeah, still got a bit more to go before I can finish the top, but it's looking good, so I'm gonna keep knitting. So last time I knit, I finished the entire back panel. We have the bind off for the arms. It's about, I counted 105 rows, not including the ribbing, which is an additional 12 rows. So that's done. I did leave these stitches live at the top so that I can do a garter stitch or a graft, the front and the back together. I've not done that before, but I think it will give a nice seamless look. And we'll see. I also left it in live because I wasn't sure if I wanted to add more shaping on the neckline, but we can decide that later. I have also started on the front panel, so I just did the same ribbing and garter stitch that I started here. It's about 15 rows of body so far, so I have a bit of space before my text, but that means I'm ready to start doing some Fair Isle knitting for the text, so I'm going to take you through how I do that. Okay, so I have my chart pulled up here and I'm keeping it open in the app that I actually created it in because it gives you these numbers right here that helps you count how many stitches you need to make before the letters start and in between the letters, and it's just easier on my eyes. And when we start a colorwork chart, we have to think this is going to be the front of my piece. So I'm actually going to be working from right to left for this first row, and then on the purl side, the back side of the work, left to right. And these arrows up at the top here also help you keep track of that. So we can see in this first row at the bottom, because of course this is the bottom of my piece, so we're working bottom to top, we can see that the white goes from, in the first row, 12 stitches across. So I'm going to take my work and just plainly knit 12 stitches. Alright, so that is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 stitches here. I'm going to take my other color of yarn, which is black. I'm going to find the end here. And I'm going to insert this needle just like I would for normal stitch, but instead of knitting with that white, I'm going to take this black and loop it around here and knit with that instead. So I see in my chart I have 1, 2 stitches of black, so that was 1. Now we're going to do, making sure I grab the right yarn, 2 stitches, and then transition back to white for 4 stitches. Now again, looking at my chart, transitioning back to the black one for stitches 19 to 23. And when you have a long stretch of stitches, so this is 5 stitches, after 3, I'm going to insert my needle and wrap my white thread over the black, still knitting with the black one, and this just helps with better tension, and so that it's called picking up a float, so that your yarn stays attached back here and is not loose and dangling. I'll show you the back of the work once I get more done, but for now I'm just going to keep knitting back and forth across this chart and see how far I get today. After about 2 hours of knitting, I have completed the first row of text. Came out pretty good. This is what the back looks like. You get all these fun, like, this is all your floats. The tension is fine, a bit tighter in here, but I also haven't done this kind of color work very often, so we're learning. But so far so good, and it's just time to keep working on the rest. It's the end of another week of knitting, so I just wanted to check in and show where I'm at. I've completed a couple more rows of the text here. I left this space empty so that I could duplicate stitch the number of days once I've finished and am able to count all the days that it took to make this piece. So far so good. This is what the back is looking like. I definitely think I'm getting better with the tensions, and I'm just paying attention to carrying these bits of yarns more intentionally and carefully. One thing I did notice is that I forgot to account for the arm bind off and the width of this piece. So I don't have enough space to bind off my stitches without interrupting the text. So I think this back piece is just long enough in the armpit that I can get away with actually not binding off the arms on this one and just connecting them together so that this is the entire armpits. So we'll see. I have a busy week this week, so I think I'll be knitting on the go quite a bit. But yeah, I think we're making good progress, and I'll talk to you next time. So now it is the final week before I have to show this project at school, and this is where we're at. I did finish all of the text. The tension looks not lovely, but you know, we're gonna block it and see what happens. I still need to do a couple more rows here just to finish off the top, and then I can Kitchener stitch it to the other side, and then I still have to make the neckline, the sleeves, attach it all together. In my original designs, I have the tally marks on the back, and I don't think that will be ready for like the school presentation, but I still want to complete those bits in the future. So I will be back once I'm done with these top couple rows, and I'll show you how I Kitchener or graft the two pieces to each other. Okay, now that I have my needles transferred, I'm gonna mark off where I want the neckline to be because I'm gonna be grafting each of the shoulders. So I don't wanna go all the way across. I need to leave a hole in the middle so I can put my head through this. And to do that, I'm just gonna fold this front piece in half and find this center here and just mark that with a little stitch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's about the center of the work here. And then I'm going to lay this piece flat again. And coming back to those notes we took in the beginning, let's see here. When I measured the red sweater that I have, I know that I want my neckline to be about 20 centimeters. I'm gonna give it a little bit of extra room because I am going to add a neckline on. So let's call it 22 centimeters. So starting from this marker, I'm gonna measure 11 over because it's half. So measuring, let's see if you can see what I'm doing here. Measuring 11 centimeters over and just marking that with a stitch marker. And then on the other side, I'm gonna hold my work together here with the purl sides or the wrong sides together, kind of like if you were sewing. I still have my yarn. I've cut the yarn away from the ball because I need to be able to insert a tapestry needle onto this yarn so that I can do this. I'm gonna pull a little bit through so I don't lose the needle there. And I'm gonna do my best to show what I'm doing exactly here. So to start the Kitchener stitch, I'm going to be working into the side that my yarn is still connected to, so that's the front of my work. And I'm going to insert the needle as if I was doing a purl. And I'm just gonna pull that through all the way. And then onto the other needle that I'm working on, I'm going to insert my tapestry needle as if I was doing a knit stitch. I can get it in. Yes, pull that through. I'm sorry if you guys can't really see what I'm doing. If you look up Kitchener stitch tutorial, there's better people out there than me to show this to you, but that is the beginning of our Kitchener stitch. So now comes the repeat. I'm just gonna give this a little bit of a tug here so that these are nice and together. I'm gonna take my tapestry needle and I'm going to insert it knitwise into the front of my panel, and this time taking the stitch off of the needle and just pulling my yarn all the way through. Working again into the front first. I'm going to insert purlwise and keep that stitch on the needle. So you want to secure the stitches before you take them off. Now working into my back needle, I'm going to insert as if I was purling and remove this back stitch. Pulling my yarn all the way through and giving it a little tug, and then once again securing that next back stitch by inserting my tapestry needle knitwise and leaving the stitch on. And this is the repeat that we're gonna do all the way up until I hit that stitch marker that I put here. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing this and I'll show you guys what it looks like when everything is grafted together. Okay, I just finished the first shoulder here and I wanted to show you a bit what it looks like. It's not perfect because my tension isn't perfect, but this is kind of the idea. You just get this seamless shoulder here. Here's my neck hole. I'm leaving these stitches on this needle again so I can pick them up when I do the neckline. So I just need to do the other side and then we can kind of do a try on after this. So I'll be back when it's done. Okay, now that my shoulders are seamed together, we're gonna leave the sides unsewn for now because it will actually be easier to first attach the sleeves and then kind of sew all the way in one go down. So first we're gonna start on the neckline. So I left those 2 needles in, so now I can just continue knitting. Actually what we're gonna do is downsize these needles first. And this is why I love interchangeable circular needles. If you're a beginning knitter, if you're an advanced knitter, circular needles, they're lovely. And then I can just do this and bam, new set of needles in my project. So now that those are attached, I'm just gonna push the work to the front of the needles here. And I'm just gonna start knitting, taking my yarn that is very tangled, taking my black yarn, inserting my needle into the work, and just going back in with that 2x2 rib. I'm going to put a little stitch marker after this on this first stitch, just so I can keep track. Now to my purls. And I'm just gonna keep going like this all the way around the neckline. And now that my neckline is connected in a circle, I can just continue knitting around and around and around until I get to the length that I want for my neckline. So last night I completed the neckline on here. I just did the same kind of ribbing that I did on the bottom and bound that off. So now that's done, we have a head hole. And because I'm running out of time on this, I would like to hand knit the sleeves, but instead I'm going to use my circular knitting machine here for the sleeves. I did a couple test swatches, so I found out I'm gonna knit from the cuff to the shoulder, increasing as I go, so it is not super wide or super tight around the top of my arm. And I'm gonna go back and forth with some black and white stripes. But first I'm gonna go in with my waste yarn and cast that on. And because this counter here only works in a circular setting, but I'm going to knit panels. So I'm going to count a very old-fashioned way with a pen and paper and just make tally marks. Normally I would use a top counter on my phone, but you're here, so we're just gonna mark on a paper every stitch. First I'm just gonna cast on some waste yarn so that I don't really need to count. Okay, now that I've knit a couple rows of my waste yarn, you can see here I'm just going to snip this end off, put it inside my machine here. So now I can start with my white. I have my ball sitting in my lap here. I'm gonna stick I'm gonna put the tail end of my yarn inside, put the rest of the yarn through the yarn feeder and through my little tension guide down here at the bottom. And I'm gonna make sure I get my pencil ready so I can mark my rows. I'm going to be switching colors every 6 rows. And before I start, I'm gonna add some little clothespins onto the edge of my work here, and that just helps weighs it down and helps, at least for me, my stitches from falling out. So just couple of these guys around. And then we can start. And I've decided that my stripes are each going to be 14 rows long, and then it's going to be 6 stripes throughout the arm. So we can start with the first one. Okay, so I just took my knitting off the machine. I have my waist yarn on either end here. This is how the increases went. It's nice and even, and it will sit about here. It doesn't go all the way down because I wanted to leave some space for that cuff, so I think that's a pretty good length. I want the cuff to be about as wide as these stripes, so I do want a bit of space down there. So yeah, looks good. Now we just need to do the other one and then attach them, do the cuffs, and we're almost done. So the sleeves are sewn on at the shoulders like so. They're still not fully stitched together, but now I can put it on to demonstrate. I'm going to seam everything starting at the cuff and then continue all the way along down the arm and then continuing to this side bit here, and that way it's just one big long continuous seam. Repeat on the other side, and then our sweater, well, then we still have to do the cuffs and the embroidery, and then she's done. So we're gonna keep trucking along and see where we're at next. Okay, big update. Cuffs are done, sleeves are attached. She's a wearable sweater at this point. The only thing left is the final decorations, which is the number of days embroidered on here and the tally marks put on the back. I have never done this type of method before, so I'm not sure how long it will take me. I think I'm going to start with a couple tally marks on the back and see, because the thing is, I want this number to be the final days that I worked on this project. So if I don't finish the tally marks by today, then the number of days on the front will be wrong. So I'm going to start with some tally marks. I think right now I'm at around 40 days because I started this in late December. And I'm just going to see how long that takes me, and I'll show you guys how I do the duplicate stitch, and then from there, if I have enough time, finish all of them and finish the front, and if not, I think I'm going to do as many tally marks as I can, and I have to present this on Friday, so maybe I'll just put like a little post-it note with like, still in progress, until I can finish it. So I'll show you how to do the duplicate stitch now. So I worked out some sketches of the different tally marks, but I'm not loving how these like diagonals look, just because, you know, obviously we're working with like, stitches are rectangles, so like getting a nice diagonal shape doesn't look good. So I think I'm gonna go with this one, which is just the most clean and precise, and then I'm gonna have them 10 tall and 3 apart from each other, just like I have with my letters. So now we can get started with that. So I made up a little chart that I'm looking at with a bunch of tally marks, and I've marked with these stitch markers like the kind of space I'm working in, and I also, you can kind of see it here, I have this foam mat that I pinned my work to just so I can stretch out the stitches a little bit more and it's easier to see. So I'm going to take a tapestry needle with some of my black thread attached, and I'm just gonna start working. I'm gonna check my chart here. I'm gonna work from the bottom of the piece to the top, and I'm just gonna start by inserting my thread into my first stitch and bringing it up through there, making sure to just leave a little bit of a tail so I'm not pulling this thread out later. And then I'm gonna work into the legs of the stitch above it. So going through that stitch, pulling through. And now we have one little leg of my duplicate stitch here, and then just bringing my needle back through that initial stitch. And I'm gonna take it out on the one above because that's the stitch I'll be working into next. And now you can see I have a little V made here, and I'm just going to continue doing that following my chart until I've got a couple done. I'm gonna see how long this takes me and decide if I'm gonna finish it all right now or not. But yeah, let's keep going. Well, I went from thinking I was not going to do the tally marks to spending 3 hours doing them because it was actually really therapeutic and nice. And this is what it looks like in the end. They came out pretty good. You can almost see the progression of how my stitches got cleaner as I went, because once again, this was the first time I was trying this, but I'm happy with how it came out, and now I know I can do the numbers on the front relatively quickly and then be done. So I'll film myself doing that and then we'll be done. Well, she is now completely done. We have the number stitched on there, tally marks on the back. We can take a look at the inside here. Pretty good. There is hella ends for me to weave in. Am I gonna do that? We'll see. I will think about it, but this is more of a art piece and less of a wearable piece. However, I will try it on in the next clip for you guys, but very happy with how it came out. She's a little short and cropped, but that was also just for the interest of time. I do think this is the fastest I've ever made a project like this. I think having deadlines really changed how I worked on this. Also, I, machined knit the sleeves, but even then, I think that was the fastest body completion I've ever made, and first time knitting intarsia, first time duplicate stitch. Learned a lot with this project, and I'm really happy with how it came out, so let's try it on. Here is the complete piece put on. Like I said, it's a little bit cropped. I am still gonna block it, and I'll show how I do that with the steamer. But here's the front, the back with the tally marks. I'm really happy with how it came out. I honestly knit my sweaters to about this length anyway because I like them to hit at my pants waistline, and I'm not the tallest person ever. So yeah, it came out really good. The duplicate stitching I'm so happy with. I will definitely continue to make some text-based pieces in the future. And yeah, let's block it and see if the fit is any better afterwards. Okay, welcome to my floor. I'm going to block with a steamer my piece. So I have it laid out on my foam mat here. I'm just gonna take my steamer and I'm just gonna start by steaming the piece overall, and this will just help the fibers loosen up a bit and hopefully fix some of the tension that's in here. And then later I'll pin it and stretch it out a bit so that it can set in place with the steamer, but I'm just gonna do this. Okay, now that that's done, I'm just gonna let it to dry. I'm not really worrying about the sleeves here because they already fit me quite well and the stitches are already quite loose. I'm more hoping that the text just lays a bit flatter and everything evens itself out. So yeah, we'll just let this dry probably overnight, and then I can try it on again tomorrow and see how the steaming helped. It's now completely blocked. Maybe it's hard to tell the difference on camera, but I definitely feel it's a bit looser and the fibers just fall a lot nicer now. I realize I'm missing a row of stitches here, so I'm gonna fix that. But other than that, this is the final product. I'm super happy with how it came out, and I definitely want to continue making these projects in the future. So stay tuned on my channel, and maybe I'll post some more process vlogs or some more sweaters that I make in the future.